Hi everyone, it's Miss Helen here, and I've got another story for you. And I really like this story because it reminds me of when I was a kid. Now, my brother and I used to have these competitions where we'd see who could pull the ugliest face. And just saying, more often than not, I would win, or occasionally he would. But this story is all about pulling faces. Now, my parents always used to say, stop pulling faces because if the wind changes, your face will stay like that. Now, my parents had lots of strange sayings, but I remember that one really well. And this story is actually called When the Wind Changed. And it is written by Ruth Park and Deborah Nyland. So check out this bloke on the front. He is definitely a bit of a champion at pulling faces. Now, at the end of this story, you can check out a couple of pictures of me, not as a kid, but as an adult, pulling some really unattractive faces. Enjoy! When the Wind Changed. There was this boy named Josh. He could do lots of things. There was one thing he could do best of all. He could make faces. He found out how good he was at making faces because of the dog next door. The dog did not like cats, seagulls, big or little people. Most of all, he did not like Josh. He always hoped that Josh would come over the fence and then he could bite him. One day, Josh's ball flew over the fence. Josh climbed up to see if he could get it. There it lay in the middle of the dog's garden, and the dog made a terrible noise. Good dog, said Josh. Want a nice bone, doggy? The dog made another terrible noise, which Josh understood very well that the bone the dog wanted was actually Josh's leg bone. Josh made a face at him. Ooh, look at that. It was just an ordinary awful face, but the dog's tail drooped. His ears went flat and he ran on to his porch. He growled as Josh climbed over the fence. But as Josh was still making the face, he dared not come closer. That's a pretty good face, isn't it? Ugh. When Josh got back to his own place with the ball, he went inside and there was his grandmother reading the newspaper. Look, Gran, said Josh, I can make a face that scares dogs. Grandmother looked up and gave a screech and battered Josh over the head with her newspaper. Josh was surprised and pleased. He went to the mirror to have a look at his dog and Gran scaring face. Didn't seem very special. Wow, look at that. It's pretty cool, I reckon. I can do better than that, Josh thought. Every day he practiced. He discovered more and more awful faces. He tried them on the postman. Oh my goodness, look at that face. Oh, and I think the postman's a bit frightened. Nearly dropped all his letters. He tried them on his mother. His mother was not a screecher, but she did ask him not to try his faces on the people in the street because it would not be good for Dad's business. Oh my goodness, look at Josh now. Look at that face. Oh, that's pretty ugly. Dad was a teller at the bank down the street. He was an important person and always wore a very white shirt. Dad was a hard person to upset. Whoa, look at Josh's face there. When Josh tried the most awful of his faces on him, all he did was to look thoughtfully at Josh and say, I don't know if you've heard, Josh, but if you're making a face and the wind changes, it'll stay that way, said Josh. But that didn't upset his father either. Josh went on practicing faces. Oh my goodness, look at that face. Then one day he made the best face of all. It was hideous. It almost scared Josh himself. Suddenly, the wind changed. His face stayed the way it was. Josh tried to squash it back into shape. He heaved up his chin. He pressed on the top of his head. He squeezed and pummeled his cheeks. It was no use. Josh went outside and climbed the fence. The dog next door saw him. It fell down and went like a howling bowl of jelly. Josh could see that if his face never changed back, life would become very awkward. He decided to go and ask his dad what to do. After all, Dad had known what would happen when the wind changed. He might know some more. As Josh was a thoughtful boy, he put on his cowboy hat, tied a red hanky around his face. This was so he would not scare people in the street. When he reached the bank, a robbery was going on. People had their hands up and a hold-up man was waving a gun at Dad. Josh was so worried about his face that he noticed nothing. He marched up to the counter, pulled off his hat and hanky and said, "Look, Dad." The hold-up man saw him first. He had a stocking over his head, and even through the stocking, Josh could see his face turn snow white. He made a funny noise and dropped the gun. Quick as light, Dad grabbed it up and bopped the robber on the head with it. Just as he did, the wind changed once more and Josh's face smoothed out and he looked like an ordinary boy. Dad and Josh were both heroes. They'd stopped a robbery and saved the banks hundreds of thousands of dollars. That night, Dad was on the news program on TV. He explained what had happened. He said that Josh had decided he would never make awful faces again. "Funny thing," said Dad. "When I was a boy, I was very good at making faces, and this was my best one. Just look at this." Whoa! Check out Josh's dad's face. Oh my goodness, that is so scary. Just then, the wind changed. I hope you really like that story. It's one of my favourites. But have a look at the next pictures because I reckon I'm still pretty good at pulling some ugly faces. Maybe you are too. Maybe go and try and scare your mum and dad.